In order to erase some of the mistakes that were created by the League of Nations following World War II, a new organization was created called the United Nations. The United Nations was created as part of the Yalta Conference, and it was set up to maintain peace by guaranteeing the security of its member nations. The United Nations encouraged all countries to work together on matters of equal rights and cooperation on economic, cultural, and humanitarian problems. The Charter of the United Nations was drafted in San Francisco in April of 1945, and it is currently headquartered in New York City. In the picture below, you can see the UN headquarters, and what's unique about the UN is every member nation has a flag that is represented at this institution. Now, the United Nations itself is made up of 6 major bodies, and only 2 of them really carry any sort of political power. The first that we're going to discuss is the UN General Assembly. Just like the General Assembly here in the state of Indiana, it is our legislative branch. And the UN General Assembly, the purpose of this is the policy-making body of the UN. Basically, any laws that are passed or proposed will go through the General Assembly. Every member nation of the UN has one representative on the UN General Assembly, and each country will receive 1 vote. So it doesn't matter if it's a huge country like the United States or it's a very small country somewhere in the world. Everybody is going to have the same voting power in the UN General Assembly. Now, probably the more important body of the UN is what is called the UN Security Council. Now, the UN Security Council operates a little bit differently than the General Assembly does. The UN Security Council, let me get all that off there. The UN Security Council decides diplomatic, political, and military disputes. And there are a total of 11 nations that belong on the UN Security Council. Now, among those 11 seats, you are going to have 5 permanent members, and you're going to have 6, we'll call them rotating seats. Now, the 5 permanent members are going to be Great Britain, the United States, France, China, and the Soviet Union. Then it was the Soviet Union, today it's Russia. Each of these 5 permanent nations have what's known as the power of veto. So therefore, any resolution that is proposed to the UN Security Council, if any of these 5 permanent seats does not agree with the action, then they have the ability to veto it, and therefore the resolution will not take place. Let me give you an example, a recent example of when this occurred. When the United States was looking to invade Iraq, George Bush sent our Secretary of State, Colin Powell, to the United Nations and told the United Nations that we had all this evidence against Saddam Hussein, that he was hoarding weapons of mass destruction, and that he was refusing to work with the UN. And so George Bush proposed to the United Nations that we should have a United Nations-led coalition invade Iraq. So when the vote came to pass, at the time, under the rotating seats, Germany had a seat there. So the total vote, after it was all said and done, was 9-2 in favor of a United Nations invasion, United Nations-led coalition invasion of Iraq. At that time, though, Germany said no, and France said no. And because France said no, it was not going to be a UN-led coalition. At that point, it was a United States-led coalition, so it didn't have as much clout, it did not have as much credibility as it would have been had the entire United Nations invaded at that point. It was after this vote that in the United States we no longer really started, or we no longer had French fries or French toast. We had freedom fries and freedom toast because we were so angry with the French and their inability to work with us on this one. So that's the general makeup, or the basic makeup, of the UN Security Council, the UN General Assembly, and how the United Nations works in general.